Hey class, this is Tim. I'm going to try to do a simple lecture on developmental. I broke it into two parts, so this is developmental part one. We might develop over time, of course, physically. You can see on this picture, but I'm going to talk about psychological changes over time. How does our mind change over time? How do we see the world differently, perceive things differently over time? Of course, a baby perceives the world differently than an adult does. Now, when I talk about developmental, I'll talk about some influences that are due to nature, such as our DNA. An acorn becomes an oak. But other influences come from nurture, where we grow up. If I grew up in China, I wouldn't talk the same as I grew up in the Deep South. Now, there have been these weird twin studies where twins get separated at birth, and then you can see they have identical DNA, but since they grow up in different parts of the world, nurture, influences subtle differences between these twins. Of course, they look a lot the same, nature, but there's different mannerisms, subtleties that come out because of the different environments they got raised in. Now, second point that I wanted to make is we could study prenatal development within the developing fetus, or the fetus within the developing womb, I should say. I do this in my gender class, talk about prenatal differences, but I don't want to get into that in this class. I want to talk about postnatal development as far as this class is concerned. Okay, the third point I wanted to make is how developmental research is done. Cross-sectional studies will take like different groups of people, let's say different age ranges, like 10-year-olds, and you can't see this, 85-year-olds, and let's say compare them on a test of computer proficiency, and then show how the developing brain is different. The only problem with this is you get generational effects because now 85-year-olds will probably get blasted by the 10-year-olds because the 10-year-olds know this better. So you don't always get accurate results with cross-sectional studies. Now, longitudinal studies will take a person, let me see if I can get him to come on here, and we'll follow that person across time as they age across time. And this is the correct way to do it, but it takes a lot of time. Now, there have been famous studies. One of the most famous studies is called 7 Up. It was actually a movie, and now they're at 56 Up. So they've studied this cohort, which is this group of kids at the same age, and followed them around for whatever, 49 years. And so they've been doing this. Okay, so I've broken the developmental into three big areas. Cognitive is what I'm going to focus on for this lecture, and then I'll do social and moral as developmental lecture two. Okay, cognitive. How does the brain develop? You can see over time, as a fetus develops, the brain develops, and even as a newborn, you don't have a lot of neurons. We've talked a lot about neurons, dendritic branching, how we have these neural networks. The networking in an adult, you can see sophisticated over here. So Jean Piaget is the only person I'm going to talk about when it comes to cognitive development. And Jean Piaget would watch little kids, and he was very interested in how they thought. Piaget's models, like a lot of people's models in developmental, are kind of step models. If you think about video games, you go through certain stages and then you level up. And so one of the things that he focused on were these thought errors or cognitive errors that younger children made, but older children seem to be more sophisticated in, thus the development of thought. And if you remember back to my discussion, it's like I talk about schemas when we talked about memory. I think I did this, which is cognitive folders. So they have more sophisticated folders as you get older as well. So he talked about some thought errors that revolved around these folders. For instance, if you grew up in a family and you had a dog, and I have a dog behind here, you can't really see it, you would have a dog folder. So then pretty soon, what would happen is that anytime you saw another animal, you would start calling, hey, look at that dog. Well, that's not correct. This is a unsophisticated way of seeing the world, but this is the way little kids are. They jam everything into the folder they already have. Dog, dog. Oh, but these aren't all dogs. As you get older, you accommodate, you make more folders. And so this leads into two terms. Younger kids are assimilators. What does that mean? They put everything into the same folder. If they see a lady of a certain age, she's always a mommy. It doesn't matter. They put her all into the same folder. And this is my definition. You put things into an old pre existing folder. Now, oh, I forgot I had this on here. One of my favorite books of all time, Are You My Mother? So, Are You My Mother is kind of like this, an assimilator. He's walking around. Are you my mother? It's like he's a bird. That's a dog. Of course, that's not his mother. But in this case, the book is about assimilation. Now, accommodation is this putting things into a new folder. So, it's like the ferret. A ferret's not a dog. And so the kid now makes and accommodates for a new folder. Piaget has four stages. There's no need to write these down right now, but I'll briefly go through each one of these four stages. Now, in his first stage, you're just a little bitty baby. You don't have to write down the age range up here, 0 to 2, because everybody goes through stages at different rates. There's controversy on that. But one of the first lessons you learn is there's a me and there's a world out here. Now, that's kind of trippy. And if you were in my religion class, I'd go off on Alan Watts. There is no difference between you and the world, but it's not that trippy time right now. But you learn this boundary, and that me as an individual, I can sense things, detect things with my eyes, my ears, so I get used to all these sensory features I have. But I can also use my body. So I usually talk about mobiles right here. A little baby can sense things from the mobile, its little bassinet toy, like colors and textures and sounds and lights. But I can also do things with the mobile and knock it around and use its little body. So here I'm just stuck in this car. You've heard me talk about this. Now I'm going to learn how this car works and what I can do with the car. So there are three thought errors that he found across these four stages. And so the error is called object permanence. So with little kids, they would do these experiments. And so you see this monkey toy right here. And what they would do is just put a sheet of paper or cardboard in between the baby and the monkey toy. The baby thinks the toy is gone. I think I actually have a video right here that we can watch about it. But older kids realize that objects exist even when they're out of sight. I should have put object permanence on there before, but this is the failure of these kids. They haven't grasped object permanence yet. And once they move out of this stage, they'll have this understanding. Here's the
What
video.
do you have there? Is that your yummy
Sorry for the
giraffe?
high-pitched ringing on the
Let me
video.
see.
But watch when they put the baby's toy underneath the thing. Baby doesn't even know it's there.
Where did
Now
it
watch when
go?
they bring it back out. The baby really wants the toy, you
Oh,
see? Now the baby's like, where'd the toy go? So you can see the baby hasn't grasped object permanence yet.
where's that giraffe?
Okay, second stage, pre-operational. In pre-operational, you start to babble and talk. And so this is where you might see early signs of autism and things like that, where you're not interacting or talking right. But I don't want to claim to be an expert about that. But you start to use words. Words are symbols, representations of things in the world. But these are very simple symbols. Are you my mother? Right? Everything's a mommy. So my schemas in this stage are very simplistic schemas. And I'm fixing to show, something about this in a couple of slides from now, about the schematic representation of the universe. Okay, so here, ant, bug, cat, dog, horse, goat. If you think about, little kids' books, they focus on simple schemas and they even group, animals like farm animals, zoo animals into nested folders as well. Now, the error that they would make in this stage is kind of weird. It's called egocentric thought. And we think about people being egocentric, we think about them being self centered. But what they would do is have this mountain, and they would place a child on one side and an adult on the other side. And then they would ask the young children, what do I see on my side? But what they would do is just regurgitate what they saw from their side of the table. They were unable to imagine, let's say, what does the teddy bear see in this picture? They could only say, well, you see a house on the right hand side, a cross on the left hand side, and a big mountain in the back. They couldn't imagine the teddy bear sees the back of the big mountain. And so a lot of us are egocentric in that we can't imagine the viewpoint of other people. And this is one of the big issues I talk about in my religion. Okay, so number three, concrete operational is the third stage. And in this stage, kids overcome these first two errors and they start to become what I call like kind of little scientists. They want to know why everything works. Everything's logical, it's very literal. That's why the word concrete is up there for the test purposes. Just focus on that word concrete. But their schemas are a lot more sophisticated, and this is where this movie, where I show the sophistication of schematic representation, is coming up.
Well, I would like for you to count the daisies for me. Could you count the daisies?
Okay, 1, 2,
Mm-hmm.
3,
Mm-hmm.
4, 5, 6, 7.
7 daisies.
She's 4 years old
Oh,
right
that's
here.
a lot of daisies. Now, can you count the carnations for me?
Okay. 1, 2, 3.
That's very good. That's absolutely right.
Mm.
Now, are there more daisies or more carnations?
More daisies.
More daisies. Are there more daisies or are there more flowers?
There's more daisies.
Right
More
there's a
daisies.
cognitive error.
You want to
This
count the
girl is
daisies for
9
me?
right here.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Very good. And how many carnations do we have?
3.
3. So do we have more daisies or more carnations?
More daisies.
More daisies. Now, do we have more daisies or more flowers?
More flowers.
Not an error right there. And so the two little girls differ. And I know it's silly in this presentation, but plants, have flowers. And please don't tell your biology teacher I do this. But daisies and carnations are a subcategory of a supercategory. The older girl knows this, the younger girl doesn't. She just keeps saying, it's daisies. There's more daisies. Okay, so your classification, of course, can get more sophisticated if you get into your biology classes because you got all this taxonomy of the universe. And so as adults, we get really, really sophisticated in how we divide things up. Okay, so here's the third error that I want to talk to you about. It's called conservation. I'm going to let the movie play, and I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
When you look at these two glasses, do you think that they have the same amount of juice? You think they have the same? Okay. Now we're going to pour this juice into this glass.
Can you see the little girl's face right now?
Now, do you think that this glass has more juice, this glass has more juice, or do you think that they have the same amount?
That one has more.
This one has more, and why do you think that this one has more?
Because it's taller.
So first we're going to look at
compare
these two
this
cups
girl
right
with
here.
the first
Do you think
girl.
there's the same amount of juice in this glass as there is in that glass?
Little scientist, you can tell. I love
Ready?
her.
Okay, so we're going to take the juice from this glass and pour it into this one right here.
She does not make the error right here.
Okay, so now we're going to look at this glass and that one. So do you think that there's more juice in this glass, more juice in this glass, or do you think that they have the same amount?
Same amount.
Okay, why do you think that they have the same amount?
Just because this is skinny doesn't mean it's not the same amount. It has the same amount of juice in it, but this one is just wider and this one's skinnier, but they have the same amount of juice in it.
This girl is so great.
Okay, you ready? Yeah. Okay. Does this row have more quarters? Does this row have more quarters, or do they have the same?
1, 2, 3.
Even the fact that she has to count them.
3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're all the same.
They're the same?
5, 5.
Okay.
Now watch what she does. She just rearranges them so this definition arrange it in a different way. It shouldn't matter.
Okay. Does this row have more quarters? Does this row have more, or do they have the same?
This one has more.
That one has more quarters?
Yeah.
Why does this row have more quarters?
Because it's more far away.
It's more far away.
Yeah, it's more far away than like that.
This is so cute, but it's
Looks
the
like
same number of
bigger.
quarters. The quarters are
Bigger.
conserved no matter how you rearrange it.
All right, we're going to play a
It's
game
the
with your
last
grandparents, and we're
one.
going to
I
share them
love this
between me
one.
and you, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Do you think that we shared those fairly?
No.
No, why not?
It's here. You have those and I have this one.
Well, what if we try this? Okay, can I put this down right there?
This is
Now
the
is it
best.
fair?
Yeah.
Yeah, why is it fair now?
Because we both have two.
So you can see how that goes. She doesn't understand conservation in this case. Final section, or the last one, number 4, I should say, is formal operations or formal operational. And this is when you're an adult or you move into adulthood. And now you can think abstractly. Not everything is literal. If I tell you life is like a race, you don't go start running. You know it's an analogy or a metaphor. You understand similes. You can also like calculate what if possibilities. You don't have to see something play out in front of your eyes. And so here's where I always focus. You can understand hidden meaning. Like you get jokes, you understand what the joke is. And a lot of humor is based on double entendre or puns. And so the example I usually bring up is this. I don't know if y'all like Donkey and Shrek as much as I do, but when they first go up to Lord Farquaad's house, I kind of almost messed up right there. And Donkey, I know Shrek says to Donkey, wow, what a big castle. Looks like somebody's compensating for something. And so they make this like, penis envy joke right on a kid's movie. Older kids get it and snicker. Why do they snicker? Because they get the hidden meaning. Younger kids are laughing, but they're more concrete. They're just laughing because the castle is big. And so you see this difference in a lot of kids' movies where you have the concrete level, but you have this deeper level that only adults or older kids are getting. I hope that this was a good one. Let me know if you have any questions. That's the end of lecture 1 for developmental.